Do you have a toxic relationship with food? Do you try to eat healthily, but always sabotage yourself and end up more unhealthy than when you started? Well, today we are going to help you fix this for good. Welcome to the Fabulous Health Show. I'm your host, Terry Chrisman. I'm a whole food, plant-based nutritionist, and this show gives you the tools to help you obtain optimal health so that you can live a long, happy life and age with grace and vitality. It's episode 66, and today we're joined by Bobbi Giudicelli. Bobbi had such a toxic relationship with food that she suffered with an eating disorder for years. But now she is healthier than ever, and she wrote a book about it. She also founded a food company that makes healthy breakfast Superloafs that are portable and delicious. Bobbi, welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Terry, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I really want everybody to hear your story. It's so inspiring. So talk to me briefly about your past through your relationship with food, your food addiction, and the illness that ensued.
Sure. So I think it's important to say, and I do share this in the book, that I had a less than happy childhood. It was, what I would call put in the category of dysfunctional. And included in that was very strange experiences about family meals, dinner time, my stepmother's coming into our family with eating disorders herself, et cetera. So I learned to numb myself, and rather than with drugs or alcohol, I really used food in a very, very inappropriate way. Developed anorexia for several years, pretty severe, and then transitioned to bulimic behavior for many, many years until my mid-30s, and my third son was born. And then at that point, I would say I discontinued the bulimic behavior of purging, but I still had a very, very poor relationship with food. It was not something that I used to feed myself. It was something I used more as a drug. And every meal was a negotiation. Everything I ate was a negotiation. And for me, for all of those years, as it is for many, many people who suffer eating disorders or very disordered eating, it was all about weight. It was all about looking good. It was all about to be accepted in society or by people around you or whatever. And interestingly enough, by the time I really started my journey to healthy eating, it was no longer about my weight. It was 100% about my health.
Perfect. So what was the impetus for you to get on the road to recovery?
So I would say three things happened. The three events were about 12 years or so ago. My sister died of ovarian cancer, and I was her primary caretaker. And watching her die was excruciating, not because she was my sister, not because of anything other than it was a painful, ugly way to go, and she was way too young to die. And so that got things going in my mind. At the same time, my father was on his path of aging, and his last years of life were also very sad to watch. He didn't die until he was 91 or 92, but I will tell you the last 10 years of his life had none of the quality of the rest of his life had. And at the same time, I realized the perfect trifecta was that my own health was really suffering. And I was so busy taking care of them that until all that started to wind down, I did not realize I was struggling with very, very severe chronic fatigue. I mean, we're not talking about just being tired. We're talking about could not, somebody who I've been active my whole life, whether I'm playing tennis or I'm playing, playing pickleball now, or I used to be a runner, all of those things. It wasn't just tired from doing things. It was so fatigued that I literally sometimes had trouble getting out of bed and walking across the room. So those three things came together, and I said, this has got to stop. And while normal Western medicine doctors were telling me, no, you're fine, your blood work looks good, you're just getting older, you're too busy, I knew it was not that. And I had tried to convince myself for many years that I did eat healthy, that I knew how to eat. And I decided I couldn't kid myself anymore. And I pulled out all the stops and started doing my own research into what is healthy eating, what is important about how we eat as to how we feel.
And it's absolutely amazing that you did that yourself, because eating disorders are actually a mental illness.
Yes, there's no question. Even when it was past what I would categorize as eating disorders, and it really was what I would say more commonly disordered eating, the thing that was baffling to me and really drove me is whatever I have put my mind to in my life to accomplish, I have been able to, with the exception of getting a handle on my relationship with food, on my weight, which didn't fluctuate a lot, but that was my determination, with feeling good. It's like, look, I have done everything I've taken on that I've wanted to do, and I expect to continue into the future being successful in that way. Why can't I get a handle on this? And that was the beginning of my journey when these three events kind of came together.
You're like me. You're a type A personality and you like winning. Excellent. Which brings me to your fantastic book, which is called Freedom from a Toxic Relationship with Food. And what you just talked about there was something that I highlighted in your book. And you say in your book, the reality was that I wasn't really making food choices. The food was choosing and controlling me. Talk to me about that control.
So there's a section in the book, and it might be where you pulled that out of, where I talk about food would actually talk to me. Like,
it talks to me all the time.
Exactly. Ice cream in the freezer would call to me. Well,
that's normal.
Exactly. I mean, talk about out of control. Cookies are calling me from the pantry, ice cream's calling me from the freezer. And I had, I have to say, prior to my journey starting and being somewhat successful, was everything I ate was a negotiation. It was so loud in my head. It was, well, if I eat that, I can't eat that. If I'm going to that party, I can't eat all day. If I'm doing this, then I can't do that. And eating was a negotiation. Oh, I promised myself I would keep under 1,000 calories for 3 days. So I can do that for 3 days. Or I'm letting myself eat anything I want on the weekends. And it's like, well, anything I want? I mean, it was those kinds of conversations. That's not being in control. There is
right.
No control there. Yeah.
And there's a limit, isn't it, to whether the cookies are talking to you in the cupboard, to having that level of control. And not only that, it's taking over your life.
Yes, exactly. And that's what drove me crazy. More than, I say the foundation of everything was about my weight. The truth was the foundation of everything was not being in control or feeling like I was giving up a piece of who I was, because I've always been busy. I've always worked for myself. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I was determined to be, a good mom to my kids. I have all these goals that I had in life that I was accomplishing, except this area that was so noisy and felt so out of control around food.
Yeah. So let me talk to you about your book here. You said, again, I love quoting people's books because this is just so fantastic. You were using food to numb the sadness, and you were punishing yourself with bad food choices rather than comforting myself. And then you said that the consequences of eating, such as physical discomfort and the disappointment with myself, sometimes lasted longer than the sadness over the original event. Talk to me how food was used as a comforter, as a stress relief.
Food is like any other substance that we abuse or any other addiction that we have. Food is just as effective. So if somebody is an alcoholic, they drink to numb the pain. Everything happens in your body physiologically, psychologically, that alcohol gets to avoid the pain, gets to numb you, all of those things. Food has all those same traits. None of us, when we eat, there's a dopamine release. There's all kinds of things that happen depending what food you eat. And depending why you are eating, you're going to have a different response in your body. One of the things I do talk about in the book quite a bit, because I think this is so important for people like me, people like us to understand, is that the food companies are not helping us. They're just not helping us. They prepare the food. The big food companies put things in the food to get us addicted, to promote your dopamine release, I cite in the book the tagline that the potato chip company used, I bet you can't eat just one. Well, they're not just challenging you to a dare or a challenge. What they're doing is telling you, we've made sure that we make this product so you can't eat just one. And the more you eat, the more you are going to want. I mean, they do that to us with absolute disregard for our health and complete regard for their pockets.
Absolutely. So I'm just going to fill in people, if people are not aware of what you're talking about when you talk about the dopamine response. So what happens when a person takes a substance that is addictive, whether that be alcohol, whether that be drugs, whether it be certain chemicals or certain food additives, then the brain releases a pleasure hormone called dopamine. And there's also the serotonin, which is the happy hormone. And food companies, as you say, make it so that these hormones are released, and that then what happens is the brain loves it so much that they want it more, and they want it again and again and again. And sugar elicits this response very easily to people. But one thing you mention in the book that, okay, it's addictive, food can be addictive like drugs or alcohol, but let's talk about the connection between your gut and your brain and those hormones. You described it so eloquently in your book, and I'm going to let you describe it for the people right now.
So there has been so much research. It has been so helpful for me to understand, but there's been so much research done about our gut and gut health, and it's more technically called the microbiome. So our gut, our intestinal tract is full of bacteria. There's good bacteria in there. There's not so good bacteria. We all have both. But the balance or imbalance of the good and not so good bacteria, and some of the not so good bacteria is downright bad, is critical. So when that bacteria balance, they call it dysbiosis, but when that bacteria balance is way out of whack, what happens is it's actually the bacteria. Bacteria is a living organism. It's actually the bacteria that is dictating your cravings and dictating what it is that you are driven to eat. So let's use sugar as the example that everybody kind of can relate to. So what happens when you eat sugar is the bacteria that's not good for you is increased. Is increased because it's being fed. And if you
love sugar, it's food of choice. It's like a little gremlin. Feed me, feed me.
Exactly. That specific bacteria or multiples of different bacteria thrive on sugar. So the more you eat, the more they, as I describe it in the book, it's like they're little armies. And they're interested in increasing their army and their strength and their size. And it's terrible for us. And this is a condition. I mean, if you go back to the caveman, they didn't have this problem. But
No, because they weren't eating sugar.
right. And they weren't eating processed food, and they weren't eating the chemicals, and they weren't eating all these things that are foreign bodies. And when we say sugar, I want to be clear. There is sugar in fruit. That is sugar that is handled in your body very differently than the refined table sugar that you put on things to sweeten them or in your coffee or whatever you do. So it's handled differently in your body. It creates a different bacteria, but it's the processing of all these things that your body reads as a foreign matter. And but then these armies of bacteria continue to reproduce and continue to send louder and louder and louder signals. And I talk to people all the time who say, and I used to say, I can't give that up. And the truth is, it's hard to give it up, but until you give it up, you can't give it up. So give it up.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's true. Oh, wow. I like that. I like that a lot. And the other thing is that this is the basis of things like irritable bowel syndrome and other gut disturbances, bloating, gas, constipation, diarrhea, and all that kind of stuff. So when you get the balance of your bacteria right, then you don't have those issues. You don't want the bad bacteria killing all the good bacteria. You want your good bacteria to thrive. So just a final question to you about your life and what the book, before we move on to something extra special that I'm going to talk about in a second, is what did you change to? What did you do when you said you overcame your eating disorder? What kinds of foods did you start eating? Now, I know the answer to this question, but tell everybody else.
Well, before I give you
what healed you?
Yes, before I give you the punchline, the purpose I wrote the book was, there's 8,000 at least books out there that will tell you how to eat, what to eat, and why, scientifically, why you should eat it. That's not why I wrote this book. This book is not about to answer any of those questions. What this book was written for was my promise to pay it forward, that if I ever get cured of my bad eating habits and my terrible relationship with food, I want to pay it forward, because it was an excruciating, very unpleasant, frustrating times in my life around food. And so the book is written to take you through my journey, which was very successful. And the subtitle of the book is A Journey That Will Give You Your Life Back, because it did. And in my journey, what I did is I eliminated a food that was not good for me, or a group of foods that were not good for me, one at a time. It started with artificial sweeteners. It went on to gluten. It went on to sugars. It went on to dairy. And eventually, to answer your question, it went on to eliminating, first, all processed foods, and second, all animal products. So I do eat I would say 90% whole food, 100% plant-based way of eating. And the 90% is because, yes, I do eat some processed food. I will eat a non-dairy, nut-based cheese. Not a lot, because now processed foods even taste funny to me. You can taste that it's been processed. There are some better ones that have come out, so I'm happy to say. But I haven't.
Or you can make your own with nuts.
Exactly. And so that is what I did. And my journey took me, I would say, from start to finish, probably till I ate the last bite of fish that I ever ate, was probably a total of 1.5 years. And that was just because it was all an education process for me. I recommend that you eliminate each thing that you're eliminating for a period of 4 to 6 weeks. By then you will have gained so much benefit from just eliminating that thing, and then go on to the next one and go on to the next one. And what I hope you'll find, because it's what I found, is suddenly it's not hard. You feel so much better, and you start to look at the things that you used to eat that used to make you salivate, and now you're looking at them going, why would I eat that? Yeah. And it's a transition I never expected. And one other thing I really want to say is, when people say, oh, I could never give that up, I just want to say that not only can you, if you would stop anticipating how much you would suffer and feel deprived, it's actually very easy to do it. I mean,
Yes.
if we can go through the years and years of dieting that we've gone through and deprive ourselves for 6 weeks until we lose that amount of weight and then suddenly go back to eating the way we ate, you certainly can take sugar out of your diet for 3 weeks and start to realize the benefit of that.
And see what happens. That's the thing. It's an experiment with your body. So there is a happy ending. And I'm happy to say that Bobbi is healthy and gorgeous now. I'm sure you were gorgeous before, but she's happy and healthier now than she's ever been. This is the book. Let me just give a big picture of it. It's called The Freedom from a Toxic Relationship with Food, a journey that will give you your life back. And it's a fantastic journey going plant-based. I mean, it's no secret that I'm plant-based and I went on the journey myself. So I do want to tell people, not only did you heal yourself, you've started a company to help heal others. And I love the name of the company. It's called Read the Ingredients. Let me show you that. There's a little, this is one of the packets that you make. And you make these fantastic Superloafs. They're made with real food. There's the apple one. And this is the banana nut one. Bobbi was generous enough to give me some, and I ate them all, probably too quickly. And the good thing is, when you open the box, you get these fantastic little stickers. Look at that. Food that won't slowly kill you. That's fantastic. I'm not going to show the other stickers because I want people, when they buy the box of yumminess, I would like them to get a little surprise in their packet to see what sticker they get. Now, talk to us about this food company that you started. You started it with your son. What was the whole impetus behind starting a food company?
Well, actually, my son and I, this is the second company that we have built together, co-founded and built together. As I said, I'm a serial entrepreneur, and for the previous company, I yanked him out of the corporate world, and we partnered in that and sold it. But meanwhile, while we were running that company, I was well on my way on my journey and to healthy eating. And what I found was there was absolutely nothing that was packaged that I could eat or was willing to eat. And so when I had to travel, I mean, literally, I would starve going through an airport. I will not eat processed food. I will not eat, I eat only vegan, so no animal products. And I'm also gluten-free. And gluten, I am intolerant of gluten. So you go through an airport and I challenge you to find anything you can eat, usually a bag of nuts if I can find them, not
salted.
Not only not salt, if they're salted, then they're made in oil that I will not eat and cannot tolerate. So literally you can't eat. And
a banana.
Exactly.
If you're lucky, but then you usually bring that in your handbag anyway. So
yeah, exactly. So I did find myself, as I was a year or so into this journey, I did find myself needing to travel quite a bit. And from when I'm traveling coast to coast here, you're all day traveling. And so I needed to create some recipes that I could take with me. And that was how I developed our Superloafs. And I also developed another product, which we're reformulating and repackaging, and we'll put back, which is kind of more of a snack, less of a meal. But these Read the Ingredients Superloafs are made to be a complete meal. There are no preservatives. There is no added sugar. There is nothing in there but whole food ingredients. They're high in protein. They are very balanced in healthy fats and carbohydrates. And I can tell you, for the last 6.5 years, even though we've only launched the company 2.5 years ago, for the last 6.5 years since I created the recipe, I have had one for breakfast every single morning.
They are delicious. So let me just read some okay, I'm going to actually read the ingredients on this box. This is the banana nut loaf. Yes. And in it, it has bananas, quinoa, oats, hemp protein, walnuts, almonds, and sea salt. Like, that sounds like something I would make in my house.
Yes.
I don't see any E numbers. I don't see any preservatives. Except maybe for a bit of salt, obviously, to stop it from going moldy.
That's not
I don't
true.
see
Salt doesn't
anything.
do that. Yeah. No, Terry, I just want to be clear that sugar does that. Like, if you add sugar, sugar helps it to be shelf stable. Salt is only to enhance the fruit flavor. And it brings out the sugars of the fruit, so it actually adds a stronger taste. I just wanted to be clear about that.
Okay. Now, you sell these, they're fresh, and you
Yeah.
have to keep them in the fridge or the freezer, don't you? Tell me about that. Why do you keep them in the freezer?
Well, with no preservatives. And as I said, most products, like if you look at, I hate to use, because I abhor the idea we'd be compared to a bar, but if we were to use the perfect bar or an RX bar or something like that, the reason that those are shelf stable and they claim to be all, they claim to be all natural ingredients, the reason is they're very high in sugar. So whether they use dates to make it high in sugar, or they use, whatever they're using, if you make something very, very sweet and high in sugar, it will become more shelf stable. And we have no other additives, nothing to preserve it. And so it needs to be, it does have a shelf life on the shelf of 3 or 4 days. It does have a shelf life in the refrigerator of about 10 days, 12 days, but in the freezer, it will hold for a year. And my typical,
oh, wow. That's pretty cool.
Yes. And my typical thing is, if I'm running out the door, or even when I go on vacation, I take them with me, and they travel fine for 24 hours in my bag. And then I put them in a refrigerator when I get where I'm going. They really do travel fine. But if you really want to keep them around for a grab and go whenever, they'll be a year in the freezer is no problem.
And look how tiny they are. So they fit into your handbag. That's 2. And I had mine on an aeroplane trip. This one here is 355 calories, which is for me about a meal. Maybe for some people it's half a meal, depending on how big you are. This kept me full for a 4-hour plane ride. And all I had was a water as well. So I can vouch for them being absolutely delicious. So we can't let you go without you telling people where they can get them.
Sure. The one other thing I do want to mention about read the ingredients and why the recipe, why it's so important to us that there is no added sugar, is once you've read my book and you do take that journey, you will find that you lose your taste for sugar.
Yes, you do. Absolutely.
Yes, I used to have such a sweet tooth, and now I really can't eat. I just can't eat sweet things. So those sweet bars I was referring to that are on the market, I mean, they don't taste good to me. They also taste processed, but they don't taste good because they are too sweet. I went from somebody who was 4 packets of Equal in my coffee to black coffee now. And it's like, really? I never believed I would do that. So the fact that they don't have added sugar is on purpose, because that's what you want to support your taste buds living like.
And no added oil too.
Yes, no added fats other than what's naturally in the ingredients, in the nuts specifically. So where you can get them is at our website at www.rtifoods.com.
Excellent. I'll put that in the show notes.
Yes, and they're available on Amazon. And we are going to be out in retail stores, at least in California, within the next 3 months.
Fantastic. That is great. I love them. I think they're really yummy, and I will definitely be getting some to put in my handbag for when I go on my flights. So they're fantastic. So thank you, Bobbi, for talking it to us today. Here's the book again. It's called Freedom from a Toxic Relationship with Food. I will put the link to this in the show notes today. And thank you very much for joining us on the Fabulous Health Show.
Terry, it was my pleasure. Thank you so much.
That was the delightful Bobbi Giudicelli, the author of this fantastic book. It's called Freedom from a Toxic Relationship with Food, a journey that will give you your life back. And you can get this at fabuloushealth.net. Just click on the shop tab and go to my Amazon store. She also runs the fantastic company Read the Ingredients, and that's rtifoods.com if you want to get yourself some of those Superloafs. So I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Fabulous Health Show. Please subscribe. You can subscribe to all your podcasts, such as Apple Podcasts, Google, Deezer, the whole lot. And you can also find me on YouTube. I am youtube.com/Fabulous Health TLC. I hope you have a fabulous day, and I'll see you for the next episode.